So hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Champ.ie podcast as we roll through the national hunt season. We're joined again on the podcast by Mr. Colin Finlay, who's sitting prime there in his BetXS shop in Kilbeggan, County Westmeath. Good evening, Colin.
Barry, how you doing?
Not too bad. We're joined by Ronan Groome from the Irish Field. Good evening, Ronan.
Barry. All good.
And Thomas Coyle, racehorse trainer, who have to apologise for shutting him up early last week and put the kettle on as he was just about to tip her up for the novice race at Cheltenham. Very sorry, Thomas, but we're glad to have you back on.
No bother. How are you, Barry?
And you have to go meet a man about a horse tonight, so we can't delay you. I think the point is probably more what you're going for down the local. What do you reckon?
A bit of business first and the point after, I think.
Absolutely. Listen, lads, we are going to look ahead to the Betfair Chase this weekend, the famous clash between Altior and Cyrname at Ascot. And we'll look ahead also to Ronan Groome's favourite meeting of the year, the Troytown Chase at Navan on Sunday. And if there's anything at Goran on Saturday as well, we'll discuss it all here on the Champ.ie podcast. First of all, Colin Finlay made a promise on Finlay's roundup on Sunday night that he was going to hold up his betting slip first thing on the podcast. So Colin, fire it up.
There we go. You can see it there, can you?
Well, he's gone 150 win. Elixir the Nuts. 2020
champion hurdle.
I like that a lot.
You kept your promise, Colin Finlay, and I'll give you 1 minute to explain why you've went for this one.
Well, I liked him in last year's Supreme Novices. He never got the run that day, and I haven't seen a whole lot from this year's champion hurdler so far to really make me think that this horse is 33-1. Look, fair enough, yeah, the extended break from the track is a bit of a worry. He might run over Christmas. I won't be expecting to win over Christmas, but he's the kind of horse now who comes back next springtime. I think the plan is to go for the champion hurdler, which is half the battle with these long range anti-post bets. I'm happy enough with my bet. The one thing I kind of noticed actually, this slip which I placed in Ladbrokes there today, Ladbrokes betting slips are the thinnest bits of paper you could ever get. When I was in boarding school, the Jack's roll we had more ply paper on them than this betting slip. This will do well to survive to March next year. And the other thing about this, I know the reason why Barry Doyle wanted me to have this bet, because you're talking about bringing me to Cheltenham next year for the first day, and you'll be on my shoulder when this horse goes over the finish line going, Finlay, you're up $5,000 there. We're going to Club 21 in Cheltenham tonight and you're buying all the points. That's your plan there in the background, Barry Doyle.
You want to take this anti-post king off my head, crown off my head. Do you want to tell the lads, no one has congratulated me on Harambe. I'm still waiting for people to congratulate me on Harambe's Greatwood success. Put him up at 33-1, Colin Finlay. And lads, for the Greatwood Hurdle. What about that for a shout? That's better than your Elixir the Nuts at the moment.
Where's the betting slip?
Where's the betting slip? I'll have it. Well, so it's gone now. It's in my bank account. It's all on of course, the hashtag 8 points to play on a Saturday. We'll be running that competition with all the lads. We'll explain a little bit about that at the end of the podcast. Anyway, we'll rattle through it. First things first, lads. Altior versus Cyrname this weekend. Ronan Groome. I think you told a certain racing blogger during the week that you'd rather go to the Troytown at Navan on Sunday. But I'll start with you, Ronan. Altior, whose camp would you be in for Sunday? I suppose Altior, a lot of people worried last year after jumping, I suppose, remarkably out to his left, winning at Ascot. What was wrong? Was there something up with the horse or whatever? He made hard work of it at Cheltenham, but Cyrname was exceptional, to be honest. And I suppose in the space of 2 runs, went up something like £25. He'll take a lot of beating here, I think. What's your views?
I think Altior should definitely be favoured. I'm looking forward to seeing him going up and trip. I have been for a while, just like everyone else. I take on your point that he has looked like he could be vulnerable. Of all places, Ascot could be the place that he is. But I think it's not even a question if he does stay. It's the question that you have to ask, is he good enough? But he's so classy over 2 miles. If he can transfer, 3/4 of that up to 2 mile 5, he'll win grade ones. Cyrname, everyone's talking about him after 2 huge performances over this course and distance last season. Geez, I don't know. his record fresh is shocking. He's 0 for 4 coming off a seasonal break. If you go back to the form of the Grade 1 he won at Ascot, it's not working out great at all. He beat Waiting Patient. It looked a great race at the time, and obviously it was a fantastic performance. But he beat Waiting Patient, who bombed out at Aintree. Min absolutely hammered him, and of course Altior it always beats Min. I'd be strong enough now on Altior. I think he'll go off favourite. I think he'll stay, and I think he'll probably win, and he'll make it 20 wins in a row.
Yeah, and do you think, I suppose, the point I made about his jumping out to the left, what do you put that down to?
Yeah,
the reasons why.
That was kind of one run, and I know he has kind of done it before, and it was obvious that day. But do you know what? I just think he wasn't 100% all the time last year, and he was still managing to win. And if you actually look through, in comparison to Cyrname, Altior's best performance tends to be his first run in the year as well, which is kind of a random enough event. So that kind of doubles down on Cyrname if you think Cyrname's slightly vulnerable. You're looking at Altior, he's a 175, and everyone makes this big thing about Cyrname being 176. Which is fine. I don't have a problem with ratings on certain performances because he kind of did deserve that. But Altior is an absolute rock solid 175, while Cyrname is he could be slightly questioning over 176. As in, he's only produced one performance to make him a 176, whereas Altior he's put up about double figure amount of performances to make him 175. So he's much more solid in that respect. I just think he's far ahead of Cyrname as far as the market is concerned. He's much more likely a winner. So if he went anything like even money on Saturday morning, I think I'd be having a crack at that.
Well, just at the prices, I wouldn't personally be interested in having a bet because I think I like the look of Cyrname, but I think he probably is too short in the bet, and I think I do agree with you in that respect. But Colin, I spoke to you yesterday about this. I mean, just me personally, I'm not one to knock Altior. I remember putting him up, I suppose, as he was coming. I remember being one of the, I suppose, the few that put him up coming out of novice company to go, and I fancied him maybe to beat Duvan, and obviously we know how that worked out with Duvan and that. But just I think last year he just didn't impress me, and I don't know, he's not getting any younger, and I just Cyrname looks in the space of 2 runs. We were discussing it yesterday, Colin. You seem to, I suppose, I'd say you'd agree with Ronan, the fact that in the space of 2 runs, is that too big of a jump, that 20 to 25 pounds?
Yeah, I'm going along the angle. This is too much too soon for this horse in terms of his rating. I think Ronan says he doesn't disagree with the ratings. It's just 26 pen hike. He had 8 runs where he was constantly assessed at 150. The other thing that kind of creeps me out a small bit as well is his SP. So when he won the first time at Aintree, I think he went off a 4-1. If this was a 176 horse in waiting, I thought he should have been a bit shorter. So he went and won the first day very impressively. The second day he went off a 3-1. Again, when this form line could have had to start to be kind of a bit established, he still SP'd quite softly, and I think actually Politolog opened up favourite over him that day on the track. So I think this horse is confusing Nichols as much as it is confusing us. I think it's too much too soon. I think 26 pen hike that rate. I'm thinking that there might have been something kind of amiss with the other horses in those races on both those days that this freakish mark now. Altior, look, this horse is like Michael Phelps on the cover of Time magazine with the medals. The mantelpiece is full in terms of what this horse has done on the track. Cyrname has not got anything to scratch him, and look, I think this horse is probably 8 to 11. But the tricky thing about Altior is that he always bets bigger in play. So could you really commit to 8 to 11 or even money in play when you know he's probably going to hit 2 in running? And the thing is, you have to have the balls to go in running, because all of your brain is saying to yourself, oh, wait there, this is a time where he's actually going to hit a flat spot and not pick up again. But at the same time, though, I don't know, I'd probably back him pre-race at evens than sit there and hope to get matched at 2-1 or 3-1 in play. But overall, I think Altior is a better horse, and I think Cyrname probably is a bit flattered by the 2 races that he's had at Ascot.
Fair enough. I don't know about you, Tom. I definitely believed it anyway at Ascot last year on the second run. I believed it. Did you? What's your thoughts? I'm talking about Cyrname now.
Yeah. No, I'm in the Altior camp as well, to be fair.
3-1, is it?
Yeah, no. Look, Altior's rock solid. And I actually think the step up and trip this year the horse is crying out for it. And like, this is a horse that we're talking about that's going to go for King George and that as well. So this is a lovely stepping platform for him. Yeah, no, I like Ronan said, I wouldn't be like, to think about that Cyrname is actually officially higher than Altior, who's won 20 of his 22 races, 20 in a row or 19 in a row, is madness. And like, all right, last year I know Colin saying that Altior will drift in running, but I think he'll travel so much better now in the step up and trip. He won't hit that flat spot as much. As Ronan said, if he was even money, he'd be some bet on Saturday morning.
I disagree with you all. I just think.
But look at Cyrname. Like, he got bet around places like Carlisle and Huntington and.
Yeah, but that's all the past now.
Altior. Yeah. It can't click of a finger and just keep going. It's his first run back as well. Like, he's a monster as well, isn't he? Like
he's loads of scope. Just his jumping, like, and I just think everything's in his favour. Obviously, track
first run of the season as well. When you're like,
just Altior's first as well.
Yeah, but you look at the type of horse Altior is. He's more like, he's a slicker. He looks more like of an athlete, where Cyrname is that big burly horse that everyone loves. It takes a lot more to get them horses fitter, as well. That's in my opinion now, just from looking at them.
Well made enough this week, and no one's really talking about it. Just going back to Cyrname's record, coming off a seasonal break. Like last year, you look, third, beaten by Mr. Whitaker up at Carlisle, well beaten. The year before that, beaten in a handicap hurdle off 133 at Chepstow. The year before that, beaten in a handicap hurdle at Ascot off 135. Like, no one's really talking about it all, but if you want to back Cyrname at 5-4 with that sort of record fresh to be one of the best chasers we've ever seen, you're gone bananas.
We'll wait and see. Yeah, look at I see what you're saying, but I think he's improved last year. His last two runs, improved no end, and sometimes you see with these horses, they can just improve. Like that. Okay, lads, listen, we'll move on to the Coral Hurdle. If the cap fits, my fancy for the Sayers Hurdle this year, lads, won this last year. My suspicion is he might need the run this time around. Roxana, in my opinion, I think she was probably unlucky not to win the last day of the entry. Ronan, I might come to you first on this one. Did you take a look at the Coral Hurdle?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, not a huge opinion on it, but I do think I like if the cat fits. He's interesting going forward. He's only a 7-year-old. He could progress this year, and he's a course and distance winner as well. Obviously, I just think he might struggle to get the £6 to Call Me Lord, who's been a bit frustrating, hasn't he? He hasn't really kind of kicked on, but he's already rated 160. And he's lightly enough raced for a 6-year-old. Whether he's a true 160 horse, I'm not actually that sure. But he did run off that mark, hold that mark, running in a handicap hurdle at Sandown, over what was probably an inadequate distance last time out. He's an okay record fresh. I don't even think he'll have to run that close to 160 to beat. If the cat fits first time out, getting £6 off him, if you get my drift there. So he'd be a tentative selection, but it's not a race I'm going to have a bet in.
Fair enough. Thomas, come to you.
Yeah, I think last year we were talking, Barry, and I think Harry Fry thought if the cap fits was going to be his champion hurdle horse, didn't he? Like,
he did, yeah.
And he got bet first time up in Wincanton or something, wasn't he?
Wincanton, he got bet in the elite hurdle, yeah.
Yeah, and that changed. But no, definitely going forward, as you said, I think he could definitely be a big player in the Stayers hurdle this year. Just one in this race, we were talking about Fusil Ruffles a couple of weeks ago.
Ruffles.
It's all the same. Just the horse that was second that day of Paul Nicholls' Grand Sancy. Just the fact that he's had a run, coming in more race fit, and that I know on ratings he's about £8 or £10 to find on the two, but just with that run under his belt, I think he's about 6 or 7 to 1. He could be interesting. He gave Fusel Ruffles or Raffles, whatever you want to call it, a good race that day. You know, he made him work at the end. So like he'll strip fitter, and he could give them a scare on Saturday.
Colin Finlay, I think Thomas is after stealing your thunder, is he? I think we spoke yesterday.
I might try to elaborate a bit more as to why I think that running the last day is good as well, because again, following the Nicky Henderson stable tours, this comment that he made on Call Me Lord, who's rated 160, was stays hurdling, end of nothing else. When he was talking about Fusel Raffles, it was champion hurdle this, Christmas hurdle that. Now, Fusel Raffles would be rated about 5 points or £5 behind Call Me Lord on the current rating. So I think you can kind of throw that out the window a small bit. He's obviously he's a novice last season, stepping into this kind of company now. He runs a real benchmark. He doesn't tend to run a bad race. He gave Fusel Raffles a raffling the last day. Gave him, I think it was £2 or £3 of weight as well, that Thomas rightly pointed out.
Yeah,
I know I'm looking at this and I'm seeing 152 seeding 6 to a 160 horse. This doesn't make mathematical sense in my head, but this is one of these races where I'm probably just going to throw the mathematics out the window and kind of go on gut improvement, scope for improvement. Like he's a 5-year-old. All these other horses are pretty much 7-year-olds or plus. He has kind of scope for improvement, and he is at benchmark, and I think he'll run to a good number, and I think come the end of the season it'll transpire that he's a 160 plus horse anyway, so look, he'll get to that mark.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm siding with Roxanne on this. As I said, I think she's probably should have won the last day at entry. I think she lost about 2 or 3 lengths when switched, and that mistake as well. With the run under her belt as well, I just think if the cap fits might need it. Call Me Lord as a handicapper at best, and I just think 160 probably isn't a true reflection of his form either. So Roxanne it is for me, lads. The Haydock, the Stairs hurdle race. It used to be the fix. Was it the fixed brush, lads? Umbrigado heads the betting here at 4 to 1 favoured. Short enough actually here. So he's unexposed coming out of novice company. Ran last year in the was it the 2.5 at entry. Ronan, I might come to you. Actually, you love these big juicy handicaps. Is anything in here for you?
Yeah, you mentioned them. Not very original. I like Umbrigado.
Right.
I'm not going to go on about it long because it's not a race I've really had a good cut at yet. I probably will for the 8 points to play on Saturday, but I can definitely
do there, Ronan, on that as well, don't you? We're only 1 week down. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's early days yet. You know, this is a marathon and not a sprint. So I'm biding my time. I held up a ridden like a good horse.
Actually, you know what? When you're talking about, you might as well introduce the hashtag 8 points to play. Go on, I'll give you the floor. Tell the listeners what we're doing every Saturday.
Well, the hashtag 8 points to play is a fabulous competition made up by Barry Doyle himself. And the best thing about it is that
you're embarrassing me, Ronan.
Well, you were looking for praise earlier on, so
go on.
Anyway, the best thing about it is that you're tipping to price, which is something that not all competitions have. So we're going to have a good crack at it this year with prices, early Saturday morning prices, and see who comes off best at the end. 8 points to play, so you can do whatever you want with your 8 points. 3 points win, 4 points win, or you could have, I guess you could have eight single points if you wanted to, Barry. Is that right? 8 single points or 8 points on the nose. And the best thing about it is as well, Colin Finlay, who's sitting top of the table at the minute after 1 week in action with 6 points, I think, in the lead, plus 6 points, Colin Finlay. I think he's going to sponsor the overall prize as well. So he mentioned that to me during the week. So we'll have to go on. Talk about Umbrigado, please. Yeah, look. He kind of explains himself. You look at his profile and you go, he screams of loads of scope and improvement. Only 3 runs over hurdles. He's got the grade 1 form where he just came up short last season, ran 6th to reserve tank at entry. The Pipe, David Pipe has won this race 3 times. He won it in 9, 10 and 10, 11, 12 and 13. No, sorry, 9, 10 and 12. and he won it with the same colours with the Nast. This fella,
Sambertan, did he win that?
Jerry Sambertan won it as well, and trying to think of the other one, Grand Cru, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, Umbergrado, yeah, first start after a win-up, first start of the season. He's a 5-year-old, open to loads of improvement. He's just coming in here, and you know he's been targeted at the race. Quite an obvious one, but I think he deserves his place at the top of the market.
Fair enough. I like Stony Mountain in here, lads. I thought he was impressive the last day at India as well. Again, he's that kind of novice stepping up into opening company. So I suppose I looked to stay here as well. Richard Johnson rode him the last day. I'm not sure if he's confirmed. Here's Tom O'Brien is actually confirmed, but he came in for money as well. Thomas, did you get a chance to have a look at this?
I just had a quick look. The only Irish horse in it is Aiton Bob of Willie Mullins, who has been very consistent on the flat, and that won a decent enough hurdle in Goran Park the last day. Probably didn't beat the yardstick wasn't great in Boher Dove that he bet, but they were still a long way clear of the third. I see Robbie Powers up to ride him. So look, he'll run his race. He'll be thereabouts. And just won at a big price. She's actually entered in that other hurdle that we were just talking about.
Not, are you? You're not going to say it. You're going to say my second selection.
Mega Yates.
Yates.
She won
Jefferson. Point to point.
Yeah, she won her point to point down in Monk's Grange in Wexford for Donica Doyle and Rob James. She won pretty handy. A whole lot hasn't come out of the race, but she won very impressively. Went on then, won a bumper in Carlisle, but was second in a listed bumper in Cheltenham to the Glancing Queen. That's her standout form. She won at 1-12 the last day. She bet nothing, but just she's going to have she has under 11 stone. I think she's 10-12 or 10-13, which is a nice weight in a handicap, and she could be just at a nice price now. She might get involved, so she might.
Out of a presenting mare, Colin Finlay, when I told you we were covering this last night, you were wrapped up in bed with your little cuddly socks on, and you text me back sick faces.
I tell you exactly my mindset when I seen this race, because I'll happily admit to everyone, I actually kind of unplugged from the game a bit last year, just tied up with doing this shop work and all that kind of stuff. But stepping back into when Barry Doyle sends me over this kind of a race here, it kind of reminds me of my Leaving Cert English teacher saying, "Colin, there's 500-page December Bride to read for the Leaving Cert this year. Get stuck into it." I was kind of going, for fuck's sake, this is a tricky race. But look, a couple of things that I will say that I've noticed with the race. It's got this freaky thing that, despite the fact that it's a wide open handicap, the winners tend to stay at single digit prices. I think 9 of the last or 10 of the last 11 winners have been at 9-1 or less. Doesn't tend to throw up that many in outsiders. So look, that's just one thing for the guys to back. If you ask me to pick a horse quickly, kind of like the look at Tedham for John Joe O'Neill. Well, look, that would be a fairly benign tip for that race. Now, as I said, look, it's a tricky one. I wouldn't have a strong opinion on it.
One thing I do have a strong opinion on is the Betfair Chase. It's disgraceful only 4 runners go to post here. £1 million bonus, the start of the big boneless lads here. Tom, I suppose you had interest in Lost in Translation last year. We'll come to you on this one first. I'd be all over myself, to be honest with you, after his, I suppose, fine comeback. And just people were crabbing his, I suppose, saying that his jumping was a little maybe over exuberant for something like a 3 mile. A 3 mile graded chase, but 3 mile chase in general. That he, would he get home? Is he losing too much energy in the air? That's the question I'd ask you, number one. But I suppose the Betfair Chase, King George, that'd suit him, would it not? More so maybe than obviously we'll see then later on in the season whether Gold Cup will be up his street. But what do you think?
Yeah, look. He got better and better as the year went on last year. Yeah, he looked awesome. I know people were saying that about his jumping, but obviously the horse is fresh and well in himself. But he was, to watch him soar over them fences in Carlisle the last day was, I think he got everyone. He put himself on the map even a bit more, although he bet only Count Maribel, but people were visually impressed.
I can't remember seeing a 2 miler jump as well. I know obviously Sprinter Sacre was an exceptional jumper. Vatour I know he went over 2.5 miles as a brilliant jumper as well, but
no, definitely. And like he done it so easy, and for his first run, and he's obviously going to improve for that, as you think. As you say, it's disappointing there's only 4 runners. Bristol de May, like, he's always knocking there on the door, but if Lost in Translation wants to put himself really in the market for a King George and a Gold Cup, he needs to be winning this on Saturday. I think he will. Hopefully they don't. I just don't see what the ground is. I haven't got it in front of me, but I do know.
As far as I know,
good to soft. Yeah. Well, I know he's fine on that. The couple of times last year when he got bet by Le Bagaroy, it was probably even soft to heavy. So the less rain he gets, the better. But no, real horse, proper horse to be looking forward to. And if he's going to lay down them credentials, he needs to be winning this race.
Yeah, Colin Finlay, I think you like him as well, don't you?
Yeah. Look, just to quickly touch on your sentiment there, I'd say the sponsors will probably bin that £1 million challenge from now on. Like, really, for that not to tempt one Irish horse across the water first, I'd say to be fairly disappointed with a 4-runner field. Look, I'm definitely in the Lost in Translation field. Look, the one thing about Bristol de May, I think we all know, is that if he's pre-Christmas, once he gets the Christmas turkey put away and the Christmas turkey stuffing sandwiches, he's not much good after Christmas. This is the time of the year for him. I still think that Lost in Translation now, with the run, he was very impressive last day out. He was eased up with the finish as well. So if you're to read a form, you might kind of go, he didn't beat the second that day, I think, Count Mirabelle by that much, but he actually was a bit more impressive than the bare reading of it done. The one, if you wanted to take a small bit of an angle, I would probably look at Frodon on the basis that Nichols probably would have had to tell Clonda's Bowes owners, you're not going for the £1 million challenge, you're going over Down Royal, but Frodon, you're staying here domestically to take on this kind of feat. If we're to work some kind of an angle into that, saying that Frodon has been given the chief role as Nichols' Gold Cup horse, maybe you can make a case for him. I'm probably going to stick with Lost in Translation ultimately for this race. I think he was spectacular the last day, and I'd even take a small bit of comfort the fact that Slate House was running so well in the Bet Victor last week. As I said to you, I think that the Tizard Yard have just got horses peppered all along that 3-mile staying division chaser race, and I just think they have a good benchmark there with a load of horses, and I think they're very, very sweet in this Lost in Translation.
Fair enough. Ronan Groome, do you think Real Steel will be able to live with him? Sorry, I couldn't resist. Should be going for this.
All jokes aside, I actually can't believe what I'm hearing here, lads, to be honest. This Bristol de Mai should be long odds on. If Lost in Translation...
hang up now, please. Hang up now.
Hold up. If Lost in Translation can go to Haydock and beat Bristol de Mai on soft ground, he should be 6-4 for the Gold Cup. I genuinely mean that. You're talking about Bristol de Mai is absolutely rock solid. He's 4 out of 4 at Haydock. 3 of those were by 22 lengths or more. One of them was by 57 lengths when he won this race. There's going to be soft ground. I know it's not going to be fast ground inside of it. It's going to be soft. And there is a bit of rain forecast. Not that much, but enough to keep it good to soft. He's near unbeatable at Haydock, lads. If you look at the race here last year, he beat Native River. And then he had the King George 1-2 well held back in 3rd and 4th, Clanday's Oboe and Thistlecrack. Like, that's unreal form. Everyone crabs Bristol de Mai because he says he can't do it anywhere else. He went to finish 3rd in the Gold Cup after. He just is getting better and better as the season goes on. I know Lost in Translation is the novice from last year that's coming up, but he's £9 to find Bristol de Mai, and you can get 6-5 and 11-8 to pair them. There's nowhere near as close as that. I backed Bristol de Mai this morning at 6-4. I'll probably back him again. Now that we have declarations, everything sorted, I just think he should be 1-2 here against Lost in Translation. I can't have Frodon. For me, he should be just kept at Cheltenham, the 2-mile 5. I would have ran him in the Bet Victor actually again off top weight. 3 miles a Grade 1 race like this, I just can't have him. And up the top, Ballyoptic, got piles to find really. I know he's in good form. Got piles to find in races really. I'm all over this Bristol de Mai, lads. I really am. And I accept completely how that Lost in Translation could be one of the next big thing. But you still have to look at that novice form, which still hasn't convinced me last year. the 3 mile novices coming through, the likes of Santini, Delta Work, got kind of disappointed first time out. Lost in translation, he's beat Count Marybelle, the 146 rated Count Marybelle. Now I know I made a case for Count Marybelle for the bet, but he's got well beaten there off 146, and Lost in translation beat him only beat him by 2 1/4 lengths, albeit he wasn't pushed out. I just think he has piles to find. He may well do it, but there's no way he should be 11 to 8 shot to do it, in my opinion.
Ronan Groome, you make a passionate case.
Yeah, but them long victories as well when he bet Q Card, who was on his way out. Native River last year wasn't the horse he was. Like, and when he was putting them big distance, it was heavy. Like, I know last year was good ground, okay, but he only bet Native River, who we also know wouldn't.
He beat Thistlecrack and Clanday's Old.
But then you have to take into account that Colin Tizard has put this horse in the bracket that he's his next Q Card, that the likes of that. Like,
again,
he put the horse there last year, and he says this is my next Gold Cup horse.
A lot of people say that about their horses. They have to go and show it on the track, and I accept he could be the next Gold Cup winner, but you haven't seen it yet. Definitely haven't seen it yet. Bristol de Mai, he's got it and done it. Any horse that can beat Bristol de Mai over 3 miles of haydock is a serious Gold Cup horse. So I guess we'll see.
You'll be off Real Steel by Saturday evening, so you'll be
Here, listen, I must ask you just very quickly, came into my mind today. Did you see Footpad come out and was very impressive, Ronan, for the very impressive, down in Thurles, and getting quotes for the King George as well. What way do you see that one developing between, I suppose, the two? He's bound to send something, will he, isn't he?
Yeah. Footpad would be interesting, wouldn't he? He might send it, but he gets it hard to send them over, will he? Just doesn't really like it. The angle with Real Steel is that he needs to go right-handed. That's nearly like accepted down at Closutton. Whereas Footpad might be okay. There might be something at Leopardstown for him, so maybe he thinks that is the way. But obviously Footpad owned by Suede and Munir, so happy enough they might be to go. But sure, like if Bristol de Mai wins, which I know he probably will win, like I've just said, on Saturday, they'll have that horse, so Footpad will be staying home.
Fair enough. Anyway, listen, you were all was a 3 against 1 for me in the Altior Cyrname battle. This one has got against 1 here, Ronan. Lost in translation, I think, will do the business on Saturday evening in what I said was a weak race, and I suppose it is disappointing, as Colin was saying, that we don't have an Irish runner. The fact that, lads, we move on to Navan to the Troytown Chase. Ronan, it's your favourite day of the year. It's like Christmas Day for you. Troytown Chase, give us the winner, please.
Are you not as excited about this as me?
Go on, give us the winner.
Look, yeah, I'm not. It's not. There's no declarations yet, but there's just a couple that I am really interested in. One who is just crazy interesting is Princess Scars. Do you recall this horse he used to run in the Jigginstown colours?
Yeah, it was a good 3 mile novice hurdler, wasn't he?
Yeah, back there in that 2015 season when he won the Grade 1 over hurdles at Leopardstown on heavy ground, and he was going chasing the next season. And for a while, I actually used to work for Paddy Power Betfair, and I used to do Gordon's column, and he was all over this Princess Scars. It was his horse to follow for the year. He was going chasing. He was the next big thing, and it just never worked out for him. He actually finished second to Road to Respect on his beginner's chase.
Here, can I interrupt you?
Go on, then.
He must be still mad about him if he convinced the Minears to go and buy him after.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know what the situation is with him, but he was let go for £11,000 at the horses and training sale, and obviously there's some sort of thing going on there that Elliot might have told manure and sway to keep him or go for him or something. But £11,000, Jesus, we should have clubbed together, lads, and bought him ourselves. He's a Grade 1 winner.
Send him to Thomas.
He's £9. Yeah, send him to Thomas to feck. Like, you know, he's £9 lower over fences. He's unexposed. He might just be freshened up now. Obviously, last season was a bit of a disaster. Last couple of seasons, bombed out in a hurdle at Goran, the presenting Percy race, and then ran no race at Punchestown on ground that wouldn't have suited anyway. He needs soft ground. Look, he's really interesting. He's £9 lower over fences. He could be thrown in off 1-3-1 on Sunday if Gordon sweetened him up. The other one I just wanted to mention was JP horse. I'm hoping will run, and it's called Tower Bridge for Joseph. You probably well know this horse. He won a Grade 1 as a novice over hurdles. Classy enough type of horse, and I think he just could be crying out for a step up to 3 miles. He ran some nice races last year. He ran second actually to at Plutarch at Cheltenham in the novices handicap chase.
He's won over fences, has he?
Huh?
I don't think he's won over fences, has he?
5 starts, no wins, but his form is okay. And if you go back to his hurdles form, he won that Grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival.